the whole system is getting cleaned up. Big time. I mean,
someone who was predicting that about 6 months ago, Mr. Whitaker.
Go back and catch the greater wealth about 6 months ago.
What was I predicting at that time?
That there'd be a massive clean-up in Hollywood and around the world, and like gold, you'd heat it up, and the gold would melt, and all the scum would come to the top, and then you scrape it all off.
Yeah, and now we're seeing it on so many fronts, and so we're seeing not only that, we're seeing financial systems take a flip, and changing big time. We're seeing politics change, flip, big time. And with that, of course, there's the geopolitical situations. They're changing big time. So this has a ripple effect across the globe in terms of what's going on in the world right now. And at the same time, all these things that have been hidden are being revealed. It's a time of revelation where things now are on the forefront. It's going, right, look what's been going on. Look what's really been happening.
The stuff that was happening behind the curtains before is now out in the open, and it's a very, very good thing. Good thing for the morals and the future of the world. Hey, it's Ed Radio Australia. Time for the Greater Wealth. So in time, mate. I'll tell you right now, Derek Whitaker beside me, the brains of the operation. Are you ready for a big show?
Mate, I love keeping the edge on the edge.
Oh, and you've done it so well today. Let me tell you.
You know what? He has absolutely kicked the cable down the road.
Yep.
Absolutely magic. Let's get into the show because there's a lot. I mean, look, I don't know if you've noticed, a bit has been going on in the world over the last, few days. Iran's got a lot of new swimming pools. Stuff's going on, right? And I don't want to make light of it, but sometimes in life you've got to put a smile on your face, right? You've got to just spin things a little bit more positive.
Well, there was a funny meme that came across my desk this morning.
Right.
And it was a picture of all these women doing housework.
Yes.
And it said, this is what happens for feminists when there's a threat of World War III.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you right now, conscription, here we come. And every woman is going to be out there, right there, get with the chuck slots ready to go, right?
It's been an interesting weekend for sure as far as news headlines are concerned. If you've been living under a rock, of course, there was a strike against nuclear sites by the United States in Iran. And that has got the world really on edge, as you could say. I mean, I want to not really so much dive into the politics of it, but you can't because it kind of sweeps into the other as far as the economics are concerned. And it's not really a case, I'm not really diving and saying who's right, who's wrong. I'm looking at what is this going to have the effect of as far as the economy is concerned and that sort of thing.
Agreed.
Let's get that to in a moment, but what I want to look at is where do we go from here? And that's what's really, really doing. Maybe I'll just recap for a moment.
Well, before you do that, let's announce there is another gentleman in the room, so to speak.
Yes.
And when I say gentleman, I say that very loosely, and he's in a room far, far away, which works well for us. Great to see you, Mr. Carter.
Mr. Malloy, what I call you, Derek the Cable Man? Sorry, I've changed your card.
No. I was trying to load some technical stuff and I kicked a cable. It's kept these guys on the edge.
Didn't kick the can. So anyway, talking to me.
Okay, we'll go with that. All right.
Well, over the weekend, oil futures went up by about 13%.
I wonder why. Ooh.
Yeah, it did. Actually, it went there before the weekend, and it's risen even higher now at about $76.47 per barrel. And the Brent futures up 3.2%, reaching 74.59. You would suspect that because they're concerned about supply and demand as far as oil is concerned, and what the implications might be as far as Iran is concerned. Iran's kind of saying, well, we might not supply the oil. Where do we go from here? I think they're trying to regather and think of what do we do from here that in terms of their regime. What is interesting is what will play out here. Now, if people are concerned in terms of retaliation, we've got a fascinating video here that I want Travis to jump in or someone to play for us next that's lined up. And this is kind of telling as far as the US stance is concerned. Where do we go from here? Check this out.
Are we now at war with Iran?
No, we're not. This is not a war against Iran. This is very simple. 67 days ago, the President of the United States sent the Iranians a letter, and it said, you're not going to have nuclear weapons. You're not going to have a militarized nuclear program. Let's negotiate. I want to do this diplomatically. I want to do this peacefully. They tried to play him along the way they've played every American president for the last 35 years. And, you know, the president told them, if we don't get a deal, which is what he wanted, then I'll have to handle it differently. And that's what he did last night. He handled it differently. But that was an Iranian choice. We didn't make that choice. They did. By playing games with Donald Trump, they made a huge mistake. And President Trump acted last night. And I think the world today is safer and more stable than it was 24 hours ago. And a bunch of these countries putting out statements condemning us, privately, they all agree with us that this needed to be done. They got to do what they got to do for, you know, their own public relations purposes. But the only people in the world that are unhappy about what happened in Iran last night is the regime in Iran.
Have you heard from anyone in Iran, and are you expecting retaliation?
Well, if they retaliate, it'll be the worst mistake they've ever made. Look, we can fly in and out of Iran at will. We went in last night. The president sent our military forces from halfway across the world, went in, conducted this operation, left. Not a shot was fired against us. They didn't even know what had happened. By the time we left, the planes were out of their airspace before they finally started realizing they'd been hit. So it would be a terrible mistake if Iran retaliates. But that's not our goal. We are not declaring war on Iran. We're not looking for war on Iran. But if they attack us, then I think we have capabilities they haven't even seen yet. It would be a terrible mistake on their part. And frankly, it's not what we hope for or wish. What we want now is to ensure that Iran never has nuclear weapons. If what they want is a civil nuclear program where they have power plants like a lot of other countries in the world have, they can do that. That's the deal that's been offered to them. They rejected it. They played us. They tried to play us, I should say. They wouldn't respond to our offers. They disappeared for 10 days. And now, you know, the president had to take action as a response.
Their kind of stance is saying, look, this is not a war. This was a strike, and making the difference there in terms that they don't want to continue this. It's just we had one ultimatum. We didn't want Iran to have nuclear weapons.
Look, I get that, and I mean, as I say, we're going to try and talk about this on how this affects the finances, and this is an important thing. But at the same time, and I'm not, please don't ever think I'm taking any side on this as far as Iran or whatever, but I have been hearing the same argument for about 45 years now about, they're a week away, they're a month away, they're 2 years away from having nuclear weapons. I mean, really? Nuclear weapons have been on Earth now for over 80 years, right? It's not new tech. I want to know, like, I'm a little concerned. Is this another Iraq? You know, is this another, can we just be told the truth?
Oh, I can answer that one. So, putting a nuclear bomb together is actually a lot harder than what people realize. So you've got to enrich the plutonium or uranium, whatever you're using, to 90% purity. So for a nuclear reactor, you only need like 20 or 30%. So Iran has been constantly enhancing and enriching the uranium for years. So they go from 20 to 30 to 40%. So there's all these international bodies which aren't controlled by America, but other countries keep going in going, hey, why you've got 60% pure uranium over there when you only need 20% for domestic use? Okay. And they keep saying, no, it's just we're experimenting, we're testing. And they've been told time and time again, you are to stop, you are not to continue enriching the uranium. This has been going on for decades. So this is not a new thing. This is not, I'll be honest with you, Iran's probably been producing nuclear warheads before Iraq has. But what's happening is it's been getting closer and closer to that 90%. Now, intelligence from what's being reported on Fox News and a few other places, Israel has stated that they had enough 90% uranium, which would cause you've got to be high enough in the purity to cause a chain reaction, which causes the nuclear bomb. Anything 90% will only cause a dirty bomb. You'll have nuclear fallout, but you won't get the... Anyway, so they had enough 90% purified uranium to... I've heard reports of 8 bombs. I've heard 16. I've heard all sorts of different ones. But it's at the point now where they've got all the parts to actually manufacture. You got to remember, these nuclear warheads are massive. They're huge. So they're not a small thing. You need a lot of really, really specific machinery to put it together. And so they finally had all the parts, they've had all the machines, they've had it in bunkers all the way like 20 stories down into the ground. So I think you'll find that they were legitimately very, very close to constructing their first nuclear warhead. And they also had the ballistic technology to be able to launch it into Israel. So Israel said, no, enough of this crap, we're going in.
Okay. I mean, as I say, I bring it up because of the point of it's been ridiculous. Okay, for so many generations, we've had the same story. We hear it over and over again. And, obviously we know what happened with Iraq, which was, complete, false flag. right, in so many different ways. It was that was moving a regime for political reasons. So, yeah, and that has everything to do with the petroleum side of things, as oil, petrodollar, all of that, right?
There are a lot of emotions on this. I'm not going to deny that. I've got clients and this sort of stuff who are ex-military and fought in that regime of weapons of mass destruction where they go. I've got clients originate from their family roots in the Middle East and all this sort of stuff. I'm not going to. It's a hot potato.
It really is.
I think that the thing that we've got to bear in mind is two things. I think one, people can get fearful, and I don't think we are to go down that path. We're not meant to fear, and I don't believe that this is going to go to World War III. I really don't. I think
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go that far. There's a few reasons for that. One, you see that Trump has done multiple deals in the Middle East.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
They've got $6 trillion worth of deals, and they're investing in the United States. Trump's doing deals with them. So those countries surrounding this area really don't want an escalation.
No way. It's in their best interest, quite frankly, for the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need peace.
Yeah. So, and we're not just talking Israel. I'm talking Saudi Arabia, Qatar, those surrounding regions. They want this to work. They've got a vested interest in this. I think, secondly, you've got a situation politically where China and Russia are probably not in positions for more military activation. You've got Russia already involved in Europe. They don't want to be doing things on multiple fronts. China at the moment is probably not in economic good shape as it once was, and it's trying to navigate through that. I think there's a lot also. The other point I want to make is there's a lot going on that we don't know is happening.
100%.
And so
agree with that.
You heard the statement from Rubio there that nations are putting out memos that they have to, but privately they may have a different view because they've got to keep up the PR. I think that's actually stating quite a lot, to be honest.
I was actually blown away he said that, right? Because, look, quite frankly, some of us know and others, don't know that. Yeah. And the PR side of things, countries, like everything, countries, companies, people lie, right? Okay, when you're looking after your best interests or they don't want to cause a panic, whatever the case may be. There's so many variables to this. So I get it. And I certainly, at the end of the day, I don't... I've got no bigotry towards any particular country. Quite frankly, I think people who live in Iran have every right for a peaceful life and to raise their kids and have a good life. Right? It's about the politicians. It's about the regimes. It's not actually about the people.
There's a big difference between the citizens versus the politics. Absolutely. And I mean, we've said it on this show. That some political leaders in power definitely don't represent our views, even though that we call ourselves Australians.
That's right.
This is what we've got to bear in mind.
Sorry, I had a bit of a cough there.
I think let's have a look at this one. This is the next stage where this is the other concern the United States has, is what happens internally. And this is a footage of, again, from Fox News, Tom Homan warning of Iranian sleeper cells in the United States. This is a concern. So let's take a look.
Can you assess that issue particularly? How many Iranians are in the country that are in sleeper cells trying to do bad to America right now?
Well, look, you and I have talked about this many times. I said the last 4 years, my biggest concern was this open border was the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen. So I pulled numbers this morning just from a CBP under Joe Biden. There was 1,272 nationals of Iran released in the country between OFO and the Border Patrol. And you compare that to the Trump administration, zero. Right, zero releases. And right now, because of President Trump's leadership, we have the most secure border in my lifetime, most secure border in the history of this nation. So we have a secure border. That was President Trump's big win on securing this nation. So we're not releasing people in this country. Special interest aliens aren't crossing that border undetected. But under Joe Biden, we had over 10 million people cross that border. But my biggest concern from day one, beyond the fentanyl, beyond the sex trafficking women and children, were the 2 million known gotaways. Over 2 million people crossed that border. We don't know who they are, where they came from, because they got away, because Border Patrol is so overwhelmed with the humanitarian crisis that Biden created that over 2 million people crossed the border and got away. That is my biggest concern, and that's what created the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen.
And you have that on surveillance, seeing people get away. Do you have a sense of where they went?
No, the intelligence community under President Trump has been on this since day one. What gives me any comfort at all is that you don't have Christopher Wray there, you got Kash Patel there. You don't have Alejandro Mayorkas there anymore, you got you got Kristi Noem, and you certainly don't have Kamala Harris as a border czar. So President Trump brought a great team, been on this since day one. Do we know where every one of the 2 million are? No. We don't know who they all are. We don't know why they're here, where they came from. But we do know Border Patrol intelligence for the last 4 years, they found prayer mats south of the border. They found identification from people from Iran, Turkey, Uzbekistan, Syria, south of the border. So we know that some terrorists have crossed that border. We'd be a fool to think zero cross. The thing is, though, we got President Trump as a commander-in-chief who's put all resources on that. That's why President Trump from day one, ICE operations, despite what the left media says, he has been focused on national security threats and public safety threats. And between ICE and the Bureau, we've removed thousands of national security threats because of President Trump's leadership on this.
Yes, that's right. Tom, thank you very much.
So I think that's the underlying concern the United States has in terms of where they go from here.
Of course they do. I mean,
they're facing a war within as opposed to externally. And it was very interesting, the timing, all of this. Only a week before Trump was having his birthday and having the celebrations of the American Army, which he apparently paid for, and some other donors.
Is that right?
And now he's put up 2 flagpoles in the White House and sort of stuff. So he's building nationalism there. He's acknowledging what the US troops have done in the past and this sort of stuff. And then it was almost like a show to the world. Hey, look how strong we are. This is reinforcing that kind of move as far as theatrics on the stage.
On the theatrics. That's interesting you say that.
Yeah.
Because I'm Gen X, and I, as you know, remember a period of my life where we would go through and you'd see all the propaganda on all video around the place. So you'd see the Russian tanks and all that sort of carry on, and the massive fights of the armies, and it was a very full on thing.
Yeah. So
are we going to go through another generation of that? Is what I'm saying.
I don't think so. I think you got to remember, America's come out of perception from the rest of the world that government was weak.
Yeah.
We had 4 years of it after 2020, and so that's what he's having to reinstate. Hey, America is the policeman. Back again in terms of foreign relations.
The sheriff is back in town. Right?
We are not mucking around. Yeah. And I think I pointed this out earlier today. You remember in his first regime, the comedians were having a bit of a joke when he first got in power, but boy, did they stop laughing after he dropped the mother of all bombs on the Taliban. And they realized this guy's serious and he will pull the trigger if needed. And everybody sobered up after that one in terms of their ha-ha-has around Trump. And I think that's what you've got to realize here is he doesn't mess. When he says he's going to do something, he's going to do something, or he's going to play his cards if you don't muck around with him. And he's shown that to the rest of the world in terms of who he's had in the White House, in the Oval Office as well, putting them on stage. Yeah.
Genuine leadership. Someone you won't get leadership from, but he has an opinion. Travis Carter.
So just on Derek's comment about all the comedians stop the ha-ha-has, they went very quickly to ah-ah-ahs. It was terrible, wasn't it?
Was that really worth it?
It absolutely was, because the second point is actually genuine. I'm hearing a lot of talk about, is this the start of World War III? I don't think so, because let me ask you a question. Do you think the Germans would have invaded Poland if America dropped a nuclear bomb on them?
Not a chance.
Absolutely not. And this is the non-nuclear version of dropping the nuclear bomb on someone.
In perspective here, remember the Americans stole the tech from the Germans. So
the point is, this is the largest, the Moab was the largest bomb dropped that was not nuclear in war. And now this is arguably the largest payload. Because you got to remember that each of these bombs, the bunker buster bombs, Dan was saying earlier that 14 of them got dropped. So they're 14 ton each.
Wow.
So there was also over 25 Tomahawks launched, and in the operation into Iran, there was over 125 planes were involved. Not a single bullet was fired at any of them. Now, with that many airplanes, are you telling me no one could hear them on the ground? You're telling me that the Iranian Defense Forces weren't going, there's a crap load of airplanes above us. Maybe we should start having pot shots out and maybe we might hit one. No, absolutely not. So I think this is the equivalent of dropping a bomb on Japan to stop the war. I think dropping these bombs have actually scared the living bejesus out of Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, or the terrorist organizations. The whole entire lot have gone, okay, there's no possible way we come out of this alive if we fight America on this one. And I think this decision has stopped World War III.
There's another argument that says that Trump has eliminated any excuse for Israel to keep attacking Iran.
Agreed.
And that's a really
I
interesting one.
disagree. Absolutely disagree on that one because they're still launching rockets into civilian areas. I think it's actually geared up Israel to go in even harder at the military targets, military targets, because they're gone from military strikes because previously they were attacking the Israel version of the Pentagon, the Ministry of Defense, barracks, air bases. That's where the rockets were aiming at. Now they're going for hospitals, schools, residential areas. So this is now targeting the people of Iran rather than the military. So no, I actually encourage. I'm supportive of American Israel going into Iran and wiping out those military things than getting out again. So I think it's actually more reason for having military presence in Iran.
I think my opinion on this is go after the infrastructure, obviously, the military side of things. You know, bridges, bits and pieces are not going to carry it. But the moment they start going
leave bridges alone. Bridges are infrastructure for people. You go take out rocket launching sites because that's something you think
that goes without saying. It's under the umbrella of military here, mate, right? But I'm saying, you don't go after the residential areas. Now, I mean, what we had in Ukraine was obviously, which a lot of people won't admit or talk about, but I know this for a fact because I've actually seen the video myself taken by somebody standing there. But when you had, in the case of when Russia was attacking Ukraine, for argument's sake, you had Ukrainian troops who would troops who would actually be there amongst the buildings in the residential areas, right? And they were redrawing fire there. Now, I hope that's not happening in Iran, and that's a concern to me.
Yeah, well, there's no troops actually on the floor. You've got to remember that Israel's been going through this for decades. So Iran's been saying death to America, death to Israel for like 40 decades now. So the moment Israelis hear the sirens that there's rockets coming, they go straight to the bunkers. So, and they're everywhere. So that's one of the reasons there's been so few casualties on the Israeli side because they're prepared for this. They know it's coming. They've built Israel to handle rocket attacks. Doesn't mean people aren't going to get hurt, but you also got to remember the war in Russia and Ukraine is totally different because they're in amongst all the buildings and everything. If you're trying to get to, say, let's say Ukraine's got the equivalent of the Pentagon, you don't have to go through residential areas to get to the Pentagon. And so you're going to have fighting in residential areas. So you've got no troops on the ground here.
That's my point, Travis, is, okay, in my opinion, Israel has no right to be going after any residential areas because there are no ground troops to be going for, right? So in my opinion, they should, if they're going to be shooting anyone or attacking or bombing anyone, they should be only attacking the military places or the strategic places, keep well away from residential.
Yeah, and you can see when Israel took out the head of the Iranian military, one of the generals, they sent an incendiary rocket into his bedroom, and only that unit was damaged. All the other units around it, there was no damage to it.
The tech is off the charts.
For them to be able to strike just military facilities, they have it. So I'm not sure what happened in Gaza, but again, I think they were boots on the ground. They were fighting within residential areas. So this is a totally different thing. They're launching rockets across countries. They're not chasing people who are trying to hide within residential buildings. So it's a totally different war. It's really hard to put the comparisons on the two. But economic side of things, I'm heavily invested into NVIDIA and Tesla stocks. I have to say, not much movement on that area. The uncertainty, I think, is outweighed because you think about it. What does NVIDIA build? They build computer chips, and every time they blow up a rocket, hey, there's another sale. So I don't think it's actually going to hurt tech stocks very much. So I think it's more going to be anything that's oil-based and transport-based is where the big issues are going to be.
We'll have to wait and see. The markets haven't opened as far as that is concerned in terms of happening on the weekend. We have seen the crypto market pull back a little bit. I'm expecting things to pull back in the short, medium term till they take off. As far as the crypto market is concerned, the stock market's a different kettle of fish. What's interesting about this is the Iranian parliament has supported closing the Strait of Hormuz, which is a channel for the delivery of oil and gas from the Middle East. Alternative could be pipelines, but this is, if we put up the next chart, you'll have a look at the volume of petroleum that's being transported through this strait, and we're talking millions of barrels per day, and it kind of shows where it's all coming from. and they've got that straight right there on the map. There, you can see if they don't, if they close that, the implications in terms of getting the oil out would be really, really interesting. I, in the short, medium term, would not be surprised if oil prices continue to go up. I don't think it's a long-term thing. I think the United States has its own supplies. You could just turn the tap on there. But you might see a bit of a rise in the short to medium as far as that's concerned. Funny enough, I've actually got the jerry cans in the back of the car to fill them up on the way home.
There you go.
Which I want to do anyway. But I figure, well, if nothing happens, great, I've got cheap petrol.
It's a bit of a case of, drill, baby, drill. I mean, there's no more greater incentive than what's going on right now. And those of us who remember, I mean, I don't remember the 70s and the crisis there in the oil world, but I certainly remember in the early 90s with the Kuwait situation. It was a war, that took place, and everything went through Iraq. The price just shot. I mean, I remember then we weren't even ready for fuel prices to go past $1 back then. The signs out the front weren't even designed for it, and all of a sudden, bang, fuel just shot up massive percentages. So, if they close that channel, aren't we looking at realistically that being a very a huge chance of having a viable option? I guess.
Look, it takes things while to trickle through any economy and supply and demand and all that sort of thing. I don't think it's going to have a massive effect on it in the long term. I think they'll just turn on the taps elsewhere as far as the globe is concerned. And America's been moving towards actually having its own supply and being energy independent.
Something they've been pushing very hard to, let's face it.
JP Morgan has basically said a closure of the Strait of Hormuz, though, could send oil prices, they reckon, to $120 to $130 per barrel. Inflation at 5%. If you look at the stats here in terms of the next graph, we're looking at when it was at that rate in March 2023, when the Fed was aggressively hiking rates. So this is the CPI inflation. Will it go up? Will it go down? We'll wait and see. But that's, you can see what was doing back in March of 2023. So, obviously these affects directly inflation, oil prices, and of course, the more expensive it is, for companies to move stuff around. The reality is, I don't think it's going to be a big issue in the long term. Maybe in the medium term.
Okay.
Even if it goes to $100 per barrel, which it could well do.
So where is it sitting right now?
At the moment, it is sitting at, give me 1 second, I'll give you the precise answer, $74.62 US a barrel at the moment, and the Brent's at $77.80. Okay. So it's got, that's a big move for it to go up that much.
Yeah. It's quite a percentage, quite frankly. Well, we've seen it before. Any political reason to make it happen? Travis?
Australia won't have a choice. We're going to get slammed with this. A lot of it is because of how poorly managed our energy supplies has been done in Australia for a long time. We export most of our LPG across to Japan. We had a refinery in Kwinana in WA to turn crude oil into petroleum. We pulled that apart, sent that to Geelong. There's a thing called a cracker. They put the oil into it and then they slam it with a heap of pressure and it breaks it all apart. Anyway, so that cracker, they weighed a stupid amount of weight. So that's now in Geelong. Our national reserves I think at one point got down to 9 days, where we've actually had legislation in the States is supposed to be at 90 days reserves. So when something like this happens, we just tap into that reserves and it protects the oil prices for us. We haven't done that for over a decade. Australia is massively underprepared for something like this. We saw that with what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. We don't even get our oil from that region of the world, but yet we still had massive increases. So Australians, I hate to say it, Derek, I think you putting the jerry cans in the back of your car is a very, very smart thing. I think that there's going to be a knee-jerk reaction. I think Australians, especially the politicians, are going to overreact to this one. We've already seen people like Penny Wong saying, hey, I agree with the strike, but, we need to get back to the negotiating table. And then there's a couple of Labor-heavy power brokers, so they're not actually politicians, the people that run the party, have actually condemned the strikes on it, saying, it's a stupid thing to do. And I'm thinking, do you understand the amount of damage that a nuclear bomb will do in that region? So I think this is very, very narrow-sighted of Australia. We've had the warning signs for God knows how long. And if you're saying that our intelligence isn't talking to the US intelligence about what they're doing and plans and what's going on around the world, if they're not, they should be fired on the spot. We're supposed to be close allies with America. We should have known this was coming well before it happened. Not
Travis,
that in pretty details, but
you've made a great mistake there. Okay, you've assumed that our politicians have intelligence, and that's boom, boom. But the reality is, when you be very honest about it, the Albanese government specifically has been so detrimental to this country and the decisions they've made, and the fact that just on the finance and political front, the fact that you've got Penny Wong out there doing what Penny does, okay, and when you've got Rudd still in that position, right? When in the embarrassment, and you've got Albanese and the things that he said about Trump, it just puts us in. Why would they share the information? Honestly, why would they? And I know we've got Pine Gap here, and we've got the military, American military, all around Australia. People don't realise just how much is around. But I think that the disrespect that Australia, and when I was saying Australia, I'm talking about particular Labor politicians, have shown.
Even Liberal politicians. Like, have a look at Turnbull, Malcolm Turnbull.
Oh, well, he's not a Liberal politician. He's a fake. He's really Labor. He pretends to be Liberal.
He's the left side of the Liberal Party. You got to remember, there's more people on the left in the Liberal Party now than what there is on the right side of politics. So Liberals are Labor light. We're making that comment the whole way through the election process for the last couple of years. So even the Liberals are not conservative anymore. Like, Australia is rudderless. Get it, rudderless. We're rudderless at the moment. We don't know what we're doing. We're flying by emotions rather than intelligence. And Penny Wong, Albanese, Chris Mayne is another one, like on the state side of things. A lot of the so-called leaders of the party are just failing left, right, and centre. So if we had the 90 days worth of reserve of energy, we could have waited this out, because this is going to blow over up, I reckon, probably about 2 to 4 weeks. If Iran doesn't do an absolute surrender within a couple of weeks, I think there's going to be a regime change powered by the actual people of Iran, because they want nice things. Like, show me people who just want to die for a cause, and there's not many of them. So most people want to have nice things. They want to be able to send the kids to school. They want to get medical treatment. They want to watch TV. They want the internet, like these creature comforts that we've all grown to love and expect. People in Iran don't have these things. So I think the actual people of Iran are what's going to step up and do the regime change. I don't think America's going to have to do it.
Interesting point on that, because I remember an interview with Gorbachev back in the day, right, back in the 80s, and right at the end of the 80s, and he said the thing that changed for him, of all things that actually was that sparked him making a real decision to change the future of Russia, was the fact that he went to a supermarket in America, right, and he saw all the choice, and he was like so blown away by it that was the thing. That was the catalyst for him changing his policies. And yes, and eventually that did become, let's face it, an uprising of the people, a very gentle one, quite frankly, of what it could have been, because government allowed it to happen, right? There wasn't that great confrontation. But, that's a great point, mate. When people are missing out, and Iranian people are missing out, that you look at images of people from Iran, or the cities and so forth, you look at those 40, 50 years ago, what a stunning place.
Well, the other thing, there was a really interesting, I was watching Charlie Kirk debate an Iranian migrant into America who was promoting like pro-Iran, pro-Palestine and all this sort of stuff. And he asked, what's your descendants? And the guy goes, my parents were Iranian refugees. And it's like, fantastic. If you look at per capita, Iranians have more millionaires in America for the immigrations than any other group that's came into America as refugees. So the Iranian people are actually really, really hardworking. They do the right thing. They pay their taxes. They learn the systems, and they flourish. They've done absolutely amazing in the Western community. And I hate to say it, this is actually one of the situations where the asylum system and the program has actually succeeded. These people have made a better life for themselves in America. They're telling their family back in Iran about it. And I think that unilateral communications going from America to the Iranian people, they're going, you know what, how come they can buy Mercedes cars? How come they can live in freedom? They can send the kids to school. They have amazing internet. Look at the clothes. Oh my God, they shaved their beards nice and shaped, and they look gorgeous. And then they're over there living in a dirt hut. Of course, there's going to be a huge amount of jealousy. So I think it's really important to make sure that the story gets through, is like, you can have this as well, but you just can't do it under your current regime. And I think that's going to encourage the people to stand up.
Brilliant point. I mean, I've got 2 Iranian friends, I've got more than 2, but 2 that I'll bring up, okay, who have been raised in this country, and their parents came over here in great poverty, and their way they struggled. They worked unbelievably hard, put their kids through good schools, and the life that their kids are now having is just fantastic, right? Yeah. Great fella. He's got his own business, going really well. The girl, the daughter, again, also got her own business. Absolutely beautiful, I might add.
Would never happen in Iran. She would be covered to the hilt and told to sit in the corner and do what I tell you.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? She dresses the way she wants to. She's absolutely stunning. She's confident and all that sort of thing. And this is because they escaped a regime that was trying to control them.
What's also fascinating about this is that often the criticisms from the East about America is, of course, what it promotes on Hollywood. And here we have this huge cleanup happening in Hollywood as we speak right now. So you can see how the whole system is getting cleaned up. Big time. I mean,
someone who was predicting that about 6 months ago, Mr. Whitaker.
Go back and catch the greater wealth about 6 months ago.
What was I predicting at that time?
That there'd be a massive cleanup in Hollywood and around the world, and like gold, you'd heat it up, and the gold would melt, and all the scum would come to the top, and then you scrape it all off.
Yeah, and now we're seeing it on so many fronts, and so we're seeing not only that, we're seeing financial systems take a flip, and changing big time. We're seeing politics change, flip, big time, and with that, of course, there's the geopolitical situations. They're changing big time. So this has a ripple effect across the globe in terms of what's going on in the world right now. And at the same time, all these things that have been hidden are being revealed. It's a time of revelation where things now are on the forefront. It's going, right, look what's been going on. Look what's really been happening.
The stuff that was happening behind the curtains before is now out in the open, and it's a very, very good thing. Good thing for the morals and the future of the world.
Talking of a great morals and opening up the world and understanding and people seeing what's going on, it's going to get really turbulent. So time for an infomercial. So if you do want to learn how to prosper during this time period, go to bluskyfactory.com.au, no E in blue. Derek has a heap of courses in there about how to break free of what you think you can do. I've done 3 of your courses now, I think. So doing those courses has enabled me to break out of Australia. I'm no longer tied up in the Australian taxation system. And I times 5 my income compared to Australia already, and I've only been overseas for about 2 months now, 3 months. So it's just the results speaks for itself. So I highly encourage anyone, if they're not sure about what's going on in the world and they want some certainty that they can handle it going forward, go to Derek's courses. There's some
we've got students signing up right now for a course that we're launching on July 1. Cool. So it's a great way to start the new financial year.
It is. And
get in touch with us.
Yeah, get in touch with us, man. I mean, apart from what's changed your life, mate, it's changed mine. It's given me a lot of freedom too. The freedom of not having to look at Mr. Cartier all the time. It's amazing. I feel so free.
I'm glad we've been able to liberate both of you.
We're liberated.
Can you say that with a little tear coming?
I do miss you. And if at the moment I stop pulling the piss out of you, then we don't have, we're family. Anyway.
You miss me when someone kicks the power cable out of a computer.
I was just thinking the same thing. Where's Travis?
Where's Travis? It's all good. Well, now enough of that sentimentality. But yes, without doubt, go do this man's courses. They will change your life. Full stop.